Welcome to Forever Exiled, the Path of Exile podcast. I'm Justin, A.K. Tags.
Tyler, Record of Days.
This is episode 101, which means
Brittleknee.
BK is joining us. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Big shout out to everybody. Episode 100 last week. You thought it was the end, but we're back.
That's right. We rediscussed.
Yep. We voted. It was 1-1. So
That's
50% meant we had to start over.
That's right. We unanimously decided to continue to episode 1000.
Well, yep. Mm-hmm. That's when we'll get the next video. So YouTube people.
And that's also our car giveaway from episode 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Our car and video episode is coming in episode 1000.
Yeah.
The video was a lot of fun, but it will not happen again.
I was going to say 99 to go. 900 to go. No problem.
Yep. It's going to be a little bit. Anyway, BK, thanks for joining us. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I have had very little PoE influence this week, so it's going to be an interesting conversation between us.
There's been a lot of stuff that's happened, so we can catch up on quite a bit.
Thankfully, Tyler makes notes and I can read them. Big shout out to our Patrons. You guys are super awesome. Thank you for supporting the podcast. If you don't know what our Patreon is, it gets you access to After Dark, which is our podcast after the podcast where we talk more about PoE, life, things. You know, sometimes I drink. Sometimes Tyler doesn't. So anyway, Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. You're awesome.
Congratulations, Mac PoE players, on your 1-year anniversary. It's coming up.
We
Anyone
have a whole
excited?
episode. Don't we have an episode before it? September 18th?
Yeah, but it's not going to release, right? We release on
you're
Sundays,
right.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
See, I can do date math.
You're kind of right.
No, it's September 18th. Today,
That's Saturday. We would record next week.
Right. Today is, well, technically it's coming out on the 12th, and then the anniversary happens, and then
Just
our next
saying.
one comes out on the 19th.
It depends.
I know
do you
we're
want to celebrate, do you want to congratulate them early or late? Come on, you don't want to say it the day after.
Yeah.
That would just be completely unstylish and unnecessary.
It's actually one of our buddies' birthdays today, but I'm actually writing, hang on, I'm going to put on the calendar that BK agreed with me. I'll be right back.
Wait, it's we have a buddy's birthday when? Today?
Yeah, it's in the group chat. We already said happy birthday. Thanks for paying attention.
Oh, who?
Ian.
Happy birthday,
wait,
Ian.
You might have to
That's
cut
right.
that out.
You
I don't
got it
think
in the podcast.
I don't
What?
think he'll want that in his birthday.
I don't care.
podcast.
It's staying in, Ian.
Okay.
You're going to like it, you piece of shit.
That's right. And if
Happy
anybody wants,
birthday.
and if anybody wants to send him any mail, his address is.
Yeah, 1234 Main Street.
That's right.
Right. We have our. Okay, so we're going to talk with BK because BK's here about her private league, but we're going to talk about the fact that we have to have a private league too for Forever Exiled. It's going to be, I think it's the week after Bingo League. Well, I don't remember when yours is, but I think you said yours is the 18th, I want to say.
Yeah, it's starting Saturday the 18th.
Because that could have been awkward for a minute. Ours is going to be
Oh.
the 19th. No, 24th. I think we're starting the 24th. Going to be 10 days. Solo self found, hardcore. New rules this time, though. You can find more information on our Discord. We don't talk about it or post it in the public stuff because it's for just people who are on Discord. So if you want to join the private league,
Yeah.
you can leave afterwards. It just saves us having people join and then steal all the money for the winners. That's all.
Yeah, it's a for fun. It's a for fun.
But yeah, you can actually be dead this time and win, which has not happened in the past before. So hardcore solo self found. More information will be in Discord. 24th. That's it. How was your week, BK? How was your non-PoE week?
Boring and uneventful. I got to go grocery shopping. That is pretty much the highlight right
In
there.
person?
No, God, no.
Oh, you're
Not with
there
our
yet.
governor and not in this. No, gosh. Like whatever you think the worst on that's going in Florida or like in the US, like Florida is a billion times worse because our governor is like COVID doesn't exist, except not really, but he just refuses, like trying to say that schools can't require masks and all this other kind of stuff when there's like all of these incidences of Delta getting into a school and then getting spread to the teachers and faculty and staff and blah, blah, blah. And it's ridiculous.
It's actually, I mean, I don't mean to sound like a dick because I'm saying it's slightly amusing to watch and hear about from way up here, but the fact that you have an individual fighting the courts to be allowed to say you can't have a mask mandate in the schools is bizarre. The schools have said they want to have
shit you've ever heard
a
in your
mask
life.
mandate, and he's saying no, schools can't say you have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And that's what he's fighting in the court right now. I just
It's
find that
so dumb.
ridiculous. Yeah, don't try and keep your kids safe.
Yeah, second I can get the fuck up out of here.
So it was a boring week though, besides grocery shopping?
Yeah, I mean, there's just like a lot of it is just been planning for everything. Kind of, it hit me like when in the league we were, because the league kind of got away from me, which means like there's all this planning for sort of like the end of league cycle for me personally, which starts with bingo league and goes all the way up until the beginning of the next league. So it kind of took me by surprise. Been playing other video games that are less intensive in the meantime, kind of killing time with that.
Like what?
Mostly Final Fantasy 14. It's just been a nice, easygoing, non-intensive game. I don't know what it is about MMOs versus action RPGs. I think it's the fact that MMOs have movement control and camera control separated across two hands, where in action RPGs, the hand you interact with the world and steer with is both your right hand. So
Right.
I think that's why MMOs have like little to no impact on me. But the second I play PoE for more than 6 hours, I'm like in pain.
Do you find this league has been worse than past ones?
This
that?
league is by far worse, at least for me personally, because of how right hand intensive it is. Like left hand intensity has never been a problem for me, like the flask issue that they were looking to address with this previous problem, or that the flask changes was not the problem. Like I grew up being trained on violin and viola, so that's like my viola hand. In addition to I play an MMO, and the very first character I ever played in WoW was a rogue, which means I mash my buttons repeatedly until my global cooldown is up. So like I play like this, but that's like every single finger on keys 1 through 5.
Right.
So flasking has never been an issue, right? So it's just my right hand intensity. And this league, between us doing, like a little bit less damage and having to fight in position a little bit better, in addition to just the extra, I usually run with a really strict filter, which means that I'm picking up maybe 7 things per map. But now because of these like currency stuff and clicking the towers and then clicking the boxes and then clicking, the currency to pick it up and then clicking to put it back into the little stash and then, all the other league mechanics combined, you try it, it's just too much on my right hand.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't built up, 3 years of abuse and terrible MMO habits, the strength in my right hand the way I have in my left hand.
Do you think, I'm not sure that that's even possible anyway. Like what you do with the left hand and MMO style, I don't find it nearly as hard as what this league with a mouse does to the right hand. For me, at least.
For me, it's not my fingers or like the bridge of my hand. It's my wrist, I guess.
Wrist,
because you have to like aim, I guess. Like the movement that is needed is like precise because you have to like click and pick up. I don't know. I don't mean to rant about it, but it's just been really unfortunate. This is the first league in 14 of them that I've had in RSI. And yeah, it's just been a pain.
You got me thinking about the old school games where you're using the D-pad, the arrows on the keyboard, and then maybe like the control and 0 that are close by, for your clicks. Pew, 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 like an old space shooter. That'd be awesome. Play some PoE with some pure keyboard. No? Nobody?
Hey, guys.
That was an awesome idea. Anyway. Sorry, it doesn't work out for you.
How was your week, Ty?
School started for the kids. That was a weird thing.
Best ever.
Well, you and I had a weird summer, right? In our area because we had, COVID, our stage 3, like how our society's progressing. We were still in kind of lockdown until like a month into school or out of school right into summer. Then once the socializing was allowed to start ramping up a bit, we had 40-degree weather. So we were told to stay inside. Then all the smoke from the forest fires, both south and north of us, collided in our little valley here. So we had to stay inside. Then the 40-degree weather came back, had to stay inside. So we had like 2 weeks to hang out outside before we could go back to school. So all of a sudden it's back and it's kind of with COVID and kind of not. Our neighborhood's doing what they can. So it's pretty neat. But yeah, it was weird. It's getting to be lawn prepped time, just. The air's finally cool enough. We're getting ready to prep our lawns for the spring and winter. Okay.
First round of fertilizers down.
Oh, is it already for you? It's still not
My
too
guy
warm
came
for
by
you?
and did it.
Oh,
Hey,
of
he's
course
the guy.
Of
I don't
course you got a guy, whatever. And so, but I finished. So somebody actually guessed correctly with the very vague details I've given in previous episodes, but I finally finished my book series. It's been like a year and a half, a year and 3/4. I finally finished the Shinara Chronicles.
Oh, you actually said it.
I did. Well, I'm done. You can't spoil it for me. It's done. Done. 34 books. Finally finished. Can't wait to talk about it with absolutely nobody.
What are you going to do while you walk now?
No.
It's been weird walking without reading,
Without a book?
but I think the next is the Witcher books are pretty small. So I think I want something small, and then I'll probably pick up the Robert Jordan books after that, The Wheel of Time, because my wife's really into them, and Amazon's coming out with a TV show for it with a big budget, kind of like the Lord of the Rings big budget that they have. So probably do that next time. But I mean, that's another year and a half with my slow reading pace. But anyway, I finally finished it, and I can say that I was reading the Shinara Chronicles. 34 books. Done! Ha!
Which one was your favorite out of the 34?
All of them. No, there were some that I thought were pretty lame, but
I heard 17 was pretty good.
I don't remember the numbers. They were all...
You don't know.
It's the halfway mark, right?
The Shinara books
You don't know.
are actually kind of like the future of our world. So it's kind of neat, but it's like swords and shields and stuff like that. It's
the future of our
neat.
world, but swords and shields?
Right, yeah. So stuff happens, and then that's what the future turns out. But it wasn't originally written like that. It was just going to be written by one book, and that was it, right? Sort of Shinara. But then he was pressured to do a trilogy. It took him 20 years to do it, apparently. And then all of a sudden, he figured out how to like really blow up and expand the world, and he wrote another 31 books in like 10 years. So pretty cool. But anyway, finally finished it. BK, Justin, what door do you keep your garbage can under in your kitchen? Like, is it under your sink for both of you?
It's in the pantry.
The left one.
Oh, you got one of the pantry ones, huh? All right.
Why do
Justin,
you ask?
which one is it under? Left or right?
The left.
And is it weird for either of you to go to someone's house and they have the garbage can in a different spot? Does it weird you out?
No. Is it supposed to?
Well, here's the...
Or was that the focus here? Was it the yes, I can't stand that. It irritates me.
Oh, man, do I have a story for you?
I just start picking up things and throwing it in their house because it's wrong.
That's right. You're like, it should be over here, so that's where I'm throwing it.
No, so we had, there's always something wrong with my house. So one of our kitchen sinks started leaking. So we, did what we could, tried to plug it up, waited for a plumber. We did what we could. We were waiting for someone to help make sure that it was done properly. So we had to move the garbage can from under the right sink to the left sink. And it drove me nuts the entire time. And it was like that for about 2 weeks until we had the help come. Now the sinks are fixed. So we have the garbage can back to under the right one. But now I'm always going to the left side instead of the right side. It's driving me nuts big time. I hate it. Absolutely hate it. I am throwing garbage in the compost by accident all the time. It's driving me nuts because the right side was religiously where garbage was supposed to go. But now I've naturally converted and I feel like I've betrayed something. So, but none of you would understand, of course. So
no, I understand that this is tragic. I'm very sorry.
I appreciate your understanding. Yeah. And anyway, that was it. It was an emotional week. Actually, I guess it's been 2 or 3 weeks since our last official, I guess 2 weeks since we recorded 9.
It's literally been the best 2 weeks of my life.
Since you
wow.
I've had a 2-week break from Tyler. We did 199 at the same time. And then I forgot about it. I just walked away.
F you, man. F you.
What were you going to say?
Last little thing. I just saw this on my news feed, but I love Lord of the Rings. I'm a massive nerd. Every time I see, what's his name? Is it Stephen Colbert? Nerd out about Lord of the Rings. I just love it. Anyway, New Zealand has Lord of the Rings stamps to commemorate the 20-year trilogy, or the 20 years since the film's trilogy thing. Their country has Lord of the Rings stamps. It's freaking awesome. Shut up.
Hey, speaking of Lord of the Rings, I rewatched Troy. You know the movie Troy?
Yeah. Nice
segue. You want to know the weirdest part about that movie?
What?
Sean Bean lives through the whole thing.
He must not have.
He does die a lot.
I was like, what the when I saw him, I was like, oh, I forgot he was in it. And then I'm watching it, gets to the end, he's still alive. And I'm like, what happened?
I think
The
they
only
didn't
movie
realize.
where he lives.
That's
Yep.
right. I think they might not have realized who they cast. Otherwise, they would have changed his role.
Yeah. And they're like, oh shit, we were
That's true.
supposed to kill him. He was supposed to fall out of the horse or something. Nope, he lives.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
How was your week, Just? No, though nobody cares.
Well, it's been, like you
That
said,
was a
2
good
weeks.
Justin impression. You did good.
This is my
He is
day
rude.
is filling up with like BK check marks here. This is great. That's like
Pluses.
3 times. Yeah. Oh, I just clicked mine.
My so Tyler may be muted for the rest of the episode 101, but it was good. It's 2 weeks really since we've done much, because we did 100 before 99, and then I spent way too much time getting those 2 episodes ready, and then I don't know, did we talk? I don't think so. Tried to avoid it as much as possible, so it was pretty relaxing.
Sorry, I
Kids
wasn't
went back to
listening. What did you
school.
say?
They went back to school, which was awesome. There was a friend of mine who was talking about how sad she was because it was her first day of school, because her kids were graduating high school this year, and she was sad about it. And I was like, there's something wrong with you. Like, that should be celebrated. You should be so happy that you're done with that nonsense. So, yep, they went back to school, work crazy, and that's about it. My week was literally work this whole week. My whole week was completely effed. I thought Wednesday, on the real Wednesday, that it was Thursday, which led into the Thursday.
That was hilarious.
Fully thinking it was Friday, to the point where I messaged BK in the morning saying, hey, just confirming you're good for tonight. And she messaged me back saying, is it Friday already? And I was like, what the hell is she talking about? And then I'm like, oh my God, it's Thursday. The worst though is that didn't stop. That wasn't the end for me. Like, I went to an appointment on Thursday that I had actually booked for Friday.
Oh no.
On the Wednesday night, thinking it was Thursday night, and that I was booking it for oh my God, it was just a mess. This whole like week was just all over the place. So yeah, it is actually Friday.
Yeah,
today.
you did it. Good for you. Yeah.
Yep. I don't know why. I'm kind of done. It's just been a crazy week. Had a lot of
Autopilot.
fun. Yeah, but literally the worst autopilot in the world. Like, autopilot should at least keep me somewhat knowing the days, but
It
Nope.
runs on WinXP and it's not updated
that's
anymore.
true. Something is wrong. It's not supported anymore. It's a little scary actually, because I've been like focusing on health, and all of a sudden I can't remember what day it is. So well, I'm hoping next week is going to be a little bit better, but
There's a
Yeah.
pill for that. Maybe you have a guy for that.
I should find a guy for that. Yeah. I'm going in for my next prolotherapy in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I don't even remember what that is.
Injections into the spine.
Right.
Yep.
For
I'm
your
excited
back?
for that. Yeah, the first round that I had done was incredible. I had the first round done beginning of August, I think, right at the end of July. And it was amazing. One of the biggest benefits I've ever felt ever in my
Is
back.
it some sort of like anti-inflammatory and nerve block, or what does it do?
So they inject it's some sort of irritant that causes the body to push blood into those locations, which then causes the body to build up scar tissue around the tendons and ligaments that are worn down. And they're really deep underneath the muscle, where it quite often can't get very good blood flow. So this somehow stimulates the body to get blood into that area, which then builds up scar tissue around the injured area. And it wasn't fun. It hurt, and it was not comfortable at all, but it was crazy, crazy beneficial. So I'm going to do 2 more runs of it over the next few months. And then,
Is it
yeah.
something that builds up to like a result over time, or is it like you just do this now until?
it's different for everybody. He had like the doctor I'm seeing, he has some people who come back every month, but mine is not that. It's not
Gotcha.
going to be that. So mine will probably, if everything goes like as well as I'm hoping it will, I'll probably go back and do it maybe once every 1 or 2 years and just redo have some more put in there. But it's been, I've literally never done anything that's given me such a big benefit to my back.
Good.
So yeah, it's awesome. So I'm excited to go do that again. And that's it, man. That's my week.
I
Now, go
I
ahead.
did think of one last thing that's not PoE related, so I
Oh,
don't
good.
sound like a complete shut-in
Yep.
nerd. I made pickles. There you go.
Oh, yes.
You like did them from scratch
Yeah.
and like pickled them and everything,
Yep.
and then put them in the jars.
Did you flavor them with anything
Garlic,
different?
peppercorn, red pepper flake, and dill.
Oh.
So how
very
long do those
nice.
sit for? They have to sit for a bit, don't they?
These are fridge pickles, so they're ready in a couple days. You don't have to like do the full gambit.
How many did you do?
6 jars. We have a we have a lot.
And how long will that last?
I don't know.
Oh.
Depends
snack
on how
on pickles?
voracious either of us get about them.
Can
I
you
do.
snack on
I
them
do.
on your
I
own?
usually
or, yeah,
grab
you do?
like my
Nice.
my late afternoon snack is usually like a little bit of some sort of cheese I like cut off of a block, and then like a handful of almonds and a pickle slice.
Is a pickle? See, when I think of pickle, I think of like, I don't know, like the three. What's the? I don't know what the name brand is. Whatever the dill pickles that we get at like the normal store. I don't know what they're called. I don't know what the
Justin
there's
has
like
a
a
guy
name
that
brand.
does
brand?
his
Is it
shopping for him.
Heinz? Is Heinz
I
like
don't
the name up here?
know.
I don't know what it is here, but
The ones that are the closest to what I have here, Clausen, I think is the name brand for them. The ones
Yeah.
that are in the fridge section.
well, like we have a buddy who loves pickles, but when I went out with him and he bought pickles, his pickles were like massive. Like they were thick. They were like, I don't know, 6 or 7. Like they looked like cucumbers. They were huge. Are we talking like that size pickle or like the 3-inch regular person size pickle?
I get the big one and then cut it down into spears. So
Oh, okay.
that's what helps like pickle them faster too, because it doesn't have to permeate through the whole thing. You're increasing the surface
Oh, okay.
area,
Yeah,
therefore
yeah.
it's done faster.
Plus, then you don't have to cut it when you want one.
Yep, it's just there.
The wheels
So
are
you can buy
turning.
them pre-sliced, but it's like 4 times as much here to buy a pre-sliced pickle.
Well, let's do it cheap to make your own. It's actually really easy.
It's awesome. We're a pickle family over here. We're always snacking on pickles. They're great.
Have you ever made your own pickles?
Us, yeah. Yeah, my grandma used to make them all the time. And so we implemented that in our house as well. So it's pretty fun.
And something I used to do regularly, but got out of the habit of it. And one of the things that I'm trying to do in the last couple of weeks is kind of like get my collective shit together. So I'm starting to get back into all the old habits and whatnot I used to do. So
Nice.
So then do you just buy the cucumbers and then go from there? Or what do
Yep.
do you grow the cucumber? Okay.
I have a garden, but it's like completely wild, and it's been really difficult to keep stuff alive because we've just had so much rain that the beds just can't hold nutrients, and the soil erosion is like for real bad. And like I had a bunch of stuff in like these above ground beds that everything died because it was just so wet all the time. And then
I think I remember you telling us about that last time we talked with you too.
yeah,
That you were trying to figure out how to save
there
them.
was some sort of fungus that got into my tomato beds that I think I just can't plant tomatoes in that bed anymore.
That
I don't know.
sucks.
I don't know how to. I mean, I'd probably have to pull all of the dirt out and then like put it in the sun for a really long time so that it just like kills anything that's in there, and then treat it and put it back if I wanted to do anything about it. But I'll just have to swap my pepper bed and my tomato bed, swap them and hope it's enough.
Do you do veggies, Ty? Like grow vegetables? Yeah.
We have to be kind of picky with which ones we can do because they grow in crazy spurts here because it's only hot for a short period of time. So it depends what kind of veggies you want. But yeah, I like to do the stuff to snack on. I don't really like doing the things that you use in meals all the time because 9 months of the year you have to buy it anyway because it's not going to grow here. But I like to do peppers. Peppers are fun to snack on. Peas. We actually did a raspberry bush this year. 2 of them. I'm hoping they're going to grow pretty good because I like snacking on that. But strawberries are a big one. I know, not veggies, cucumbers, like that. So, but in terms of herbs and all that kind of stuff, they don't really grow year round. You know, they'll grow for a bit, but then there's the half a year where they're not, and it's just kind of annoying. So I like to get my herbs from the same place. So I normally just buy the herbs from the store now. Just snack food to grow.
All right. PoE week. We got to get into PoE before people start yelling and screaming. Calm down. We kind of talked about it as we went along anyway. PoE week.
Did either of you play PoE the last couple weeks?
Yep,
She
I
streams
still
it every
stream
day.
it every day.
Yeah.
Well,
Good,
Monday
good.
through Friday.
How was your PoE week, BK? What'd you do? What are
It's
you doing?
pretty good. Got the last major set of upgrades for the build that I'm playing and have pushed into tier 14 to 16 maps on it and are starting the bossing process. Currently playing a Castle and Crit Eye of Winter Assassin. Now, it's my first Castle and Crit build, and the idea I didn't come up with. I saw a video for it, and I'm like, hey, that looks pretty cool. I was only really interested because of bow. Like the Cyclone variant Castle and Crits have never really like caught my eye. But this one uses the bow to trigger the entire process, and it's really neat because it works with Eye of Winter in a fairly unique way. So Eye of Winter is like the AoE projectile thing, and if you were to hand cast it, it sort of like spirals out from where you are. Well, not spirals, like travels in a straight line and spirals projectiles out of a ball of ice. And then it has like an explosion when it reaches the end of its pathway of projectiles. And if you are a cyclone variant of Castle and Crit, it'll just spin it off of you from whenever, and you can't really aim, like how the Eye of Winter, spells actually behave too well. But with bow, you can literally, like, it will travel from you to the end point of where you're putting the bow attack down. So you can literally just like plant the end point for it right inside of a boss. So that allows you to maximize the DPS you're doing just because of the projectile behavior. Yeah. And then you couple that with Hydrosphere and the chaining properties where it will pick up any of the like projectiles that didn't hit the boss and chain it back into the boss. So it's really, really good single target, but suffers in the way that most Castle and Crit builds do, where they are literal glass cannons. I've done some stuff to it that wasn't initially recommended in the sort of guide that I had seen. Like a couple people are just going pure damage, and I decided to try and like work some survivability into it. So we have like a lot of life gain on hit and other sort of things. Like I can't really solve mitigation because there's just not the opportunity there. Like too much stuff is required elsewhere to like put like Fizz taken as or anything like that in some of these different pieces. But as far as there's a little bit of avoidance as far as like dodge and evasion is concerned, and then lots of recovery because of life gain on hit. Like every single projectile that hits anything is going to give you 15 life back. So as long as you are hitting stuff and it doesn't one-shot you, you're basically immortal because you're just recovering your life that quickly. But yeah, it's been all right. I was actually very surprised the damage you could do even at like the moderate investment. Castle and Crit builds can easily hit 100 plus X. And I think we are, I'd say like 25 to 35x on this one. I did a lot of the crafting myself. But yeah, even at this stage where we're just really mowing down conquerors and whatnot. It's a lot of fun.
What ascendancy?
Assassin for this one. I've seen some of the versions that I've seen have been occultist, slayer, and then ascendant as well. But I don't know. I'm very, very partial to shadows in general. I've rolled more shadows than anything else. Like everyone has their kind of class that they gravitate to, but between, I just love all three of the shadows: Ascendancy, Sabo, Trickster, and Assassin. I play all three of them all the time.
What's the goal when you make a character like this?
This was exploring a completely unknown archetype. I had never played Castle and Crit at all before, so it was a lot of learning for me, which was a unique opportunity. Not saying that I knew everything in the game, but there's very few corners of PoE as far as builds are concerned. Like mechanics, I learned stuff about every single day, but like generic archetypes, I have a good feel for it across the board. And I would say like my two weakest points are sort of like this crit-related sphere of things and melee. I don't know a whole lot about melee, so that's probably something to push myself into next to try and ease out of that comfort zone a little bit. But yeah, it was just mostly learning about it, learning about the different breakpoints and how cooldown recovery affects that. And you have to find the sweet spot between cooldown recovery and attack speed and make sure that the amount of attacks that you're doing per, a given amount of time matches the proc rate of the spells that you can actually proc based on your recovery of the internal cooldown for cast on crit. So there's like some math involved, and then there's some gear tweaking and otherwise. It's neat.
It's awesome. And so how long did it take you to get up there to figure it all out, plan it out, get to where you're at?
Like I yoinked the original POV from a video that I saw. The video came out, and honestly, I was really missing Cold Scourge Arrow. Like anytime there's been it kind of got started because everyone was very upset about the patch notes rather, and the changes that happened and the reduction in damage across the board and all these other sorts of things. And a lot of people were really mad and upset. And I kind of had the kind of laughing attitude towards this entire thing because like this has already happened to me once before. Like they killed my favorite archetype in 3.9 and like ran hit-based elemental bows into the ground. So like Cold Scourge Arrow dead, like Ice Shot dead. Like you used to be able to league start fairly well on these sorts of skills. Or at least like with Ellie hit, there is a way to be like a bosser and be bossing ready very quickly with, you know, not minimal budget, but like 10 to 12x would get you to end game. And that was cool to have that accessibility for a bow archetype. Now the only bows you see at League Start are dot bows because that's the only thing that's any good anymore. With, you know, minimal amounts of investment, if you can still boss on, you know, whatever lightning arrow, cold ice shot, tornado shot. You can do all that stuff eventually, but it just takes insane amounts of investment. So, having been through 3.9, you know, I was just sort of reminiscing about the changes that the game has gone through already, which made me think a lot about Cold Scourge Arrow. And since I have sort of limited playtime this league, I wanted to play something for me rather than trying to figure out some build to write some guide on. And so I kind of wanted to treat myself and relive like the glory days. And if I can't play cold base, you know, cold elemental hit base stuff like Ice Shot or Cold Scourge Arrow, I can play something that vaguely resembles it if I squint my eyes at my monitor. So I'm holding a bow. There's cold projectiles going everywhere, and there's Herald of Ice Shatters. So that's basically the same thing, right?
That's right. You got it. You nailed it.
It,
Awesome.
it has sort of like that same kinetic feel to how cold Scourge Arrow used to feel. And that's mainly the main like sort of reasoning behind wanting to play it is like I can learn something new and I can play something that I used to or something similar to something that I used to that was honestly like my favorite thing I've ever played in PoE.
Did you league start it?
I did not league start it, no. I did not feel confident enough to league start Cast on Crit. I was gonna league start Blade Traps, but then they were severely underpowered initially. They got a buff, but by that point in time, I'd burned all my currency to switch. It was really unfortunate because I wanted to start Poison Blade Trap, and everything seemed pretty sound. And so, if you go for poison items on day one, you have to be prepared to pay a lot. They are some of the items that are like the most expensively priced initially, but then decline very, very rapidly because most of the things that are poison related are very, very common as far as the drop pool is concerned. So if you want to get a hold of them early, you got to pay a premium, and then those items will completely be devalued within like 3 days. And so it's like this investment that you have to basically be prepared to throw away. And so I'd burned the currency I'd gotten so far to get my poison items to get set up for, you know, for everything, and then the build was crap, and then I burned what little I had left to then switch into Lightning Trap, because that was like my backup plan all along in case Blade Trap didn't work out very well. And then they're like, we buffed it. I'm like, I don't have currency left, so I guess this is just gonna have to wait for now, and maybe we'll go back to Blade Trap, play it like a little bit on standard or something, just to see if I can still make the poison dream work, because I've got plenty of currency there and I just don't care. So I think it'll be like a project which after the league ends and before the next one begins, you have that week to fiddle around in standard. I think we'll go back to Blade Trap then.
Raise the roof for standard. Yeah.
Is that what people do in that week? Huh.
That's what I do, because it's basically a gigantic open sandbox. People will actually answer trades in that time because everyone's sorting their stash tabs anyways and whatnot and trying to get rid of stuff. And I think I've got like 700, 800 exalts in standard. So it's like if you want to put together a build and like really push it to its min-max properties just to see if something is possible, like that's a fun project for the week. It's like make something absolutely ridiculous, have fun for a few days, and then like get ready for the next league. But it was pretty cool. The whole intention of the Blade Trap build, because I started to experience RSI at that point in time, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to do like a pure lightning trap build, but that would have been like more clicking. And I was really, really hurting at that point in time. It was at the point where I'd like basically wrap up the stream and then put ice packs on my like hands and wrists because it was so bad. And I decided to double down and embrace it. So rather than being like, all right, well, I can't play, I was like, well, let's just take this as an opportunity to take, you know, lightning trap and this archetype that is notoriously bad for RSI. Like a lot of people say, don't play traps and mines if you have wrist problems. So the entire intention then became make a trap and mine build that is RSI friendly, so that people that do have these problems can play this archetype with minimal like issues to their hands. And that's essentially what I did. Like I basically took Lightning Trap and put it together in a format that still does damage, that can do bosses in tier 14s to tier 16s, and you can do the whole, not hurting your hands thing too. So that's going to be probably the guide that I put out this league, is the hand friendly Lightning Trap build.
Nice.
And then I got
that's
started.
the official title.
I might have to work on that title a little bit, just a little bit. But yeah, that's what we league started on. Once that got kind of finished up and got in a state that I was happy on, we killed a couple bosses with it. I was like, all right, now it's time to do something for me.
Good for you.
Sweet. How was your PoE week, Ty?
Well, why don't you cover your week first?
I played Diablo 2.
Really? All right.
Yep.
How'd that go? Isn't that beta?
I don't know why.
Or is that not beta?
No, not the Resurrected, the original Diablo 2, Lords of Destruction. And then I had heard about this thing called Median XL. It's like a extension add-on thing is free. They had a big update for it. And I was like, I don't know why, but I just decided I couldn't feel like I didn't have very much time to play anyway because of my week. And I'm like, I just want that. I want the sound. I want to hear the music again. And so I played that. It was fun. You definitely appreciate Path of Exile. Like Diablo 2 was tons of fun. And that was the game that got me into all of it. But as I played it, I was like, okay, there are definitely things that I appreciate about Path of Exile. There's definitely some things I still think they're missing out on, but it was fun. That was my Path of Exile week.
Awesome.
Diablo 2.
Sweet.
You?
Yeah, last couple weeks I've had an opportunity to play or think about be in the Path of Exile world for sure. My wife has actually been playing lots of PoE. Like she'll claim the computer, come downstairs. I think she's turning on Sims, and all of a sudden I'll go to bloop bloop. My wife's broadcasting, and she only broadcasts PoE. That's the only thing she broadcasts, and she did it like 4 times the last couple of weeks. So I was stuck on console, but it's not stuck because I love console, and so I was having a good time leveling a few new ideas, new builds. Yeah, they're really cool. I'll play around with them a little bit more. Nice click, by the way. And I made I gave kind of a disclaimer at the beginning of the league for my 2 guides that I have that I might make some gem changes. I hate making changes to a guide mid-league, but I said that, and I probably said this in a previous episode, but I like the changes this league were to very core mechanics were so drastic that, like, sure, I'll post a guide if you want to play, but keep in mind this is with the old mentality, old mechanics in mind. They might not work in like a min-maxed way. So I said I might be changing the mid-league to after I have some experience with the new flasks and mana management system. And so I made some changes to them after playing a lot, and goodness, I've been loving it. They're so smooth. They feel like they used to, but better, like for today's game. So I'm very happy with the changes, and I'll be implementing those. I've posted them as like a secondary gem set type of thing. The trees didn't change, but for both my guides, the gems changed. And I posted them as a separate thing instead of just revamping the guide. And then I'll just, obviously for next league, have the new thread for the new guides. But loving that. But has it always been this way? Nico's, when you find Nico in a map, I thought they were mounds of stuff, sulfite. Have they always been chests that open up? I thought they were like dirt mounds. No, nobody?
Sorry?
When you find Nico in a map,
right,
the stuff you click on, I thought they used to be mounds of sulfite.
It can be chests or the like little graphic for sulfite, like the rocks sitting there.
Oh,
it can
I just
be
noticed them being chest for the first time. Just noticed it. I mean,
I'm not really sure what the variation is between it, or like why sometimes it triggers and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, it can show up as either.
Gotcha.
Obviously, Ty.
Obviously. And you know how I have a personal vendetta against the Val Temple map? I hate it. I hate the fact that it's required to unlock one favorite of that region. I think that's ridiculous. Anyway, I finally found Val Temple for this league. Finally. And I never get Val Temple. So my wife and I this night, we decided we were going to watch a movie, but I was just playing PoE until we were going to play. But I was in the middle. I was just testing some builds. That's all I was doing. And I was going to be like, okay, honey, 10 more minutes and I'll be finished this map. Just want to finish this, maximize my map and get my time in. Just want to finish testing this. 10 more minutes. Zana shows up. I'm like, frick. It's so, anyway, it's a nicely rolled T15. So I asked if she was cool that I just completely finished the map. She, being awesome, says, yeah, sure, no problem. And the version that I was tested, the map that I rolled, it wasn't the fastest map. So my wife was already being crazy patient with me. But then I come across Xana in the map. And I'm like praying that Xana doesn't give me anything good so that I'm tempted to move on. And of course, she gives me a corrupted rare Val Temple. And I never, ever find it. So my wife, very kind, lets me do, well, not lets, but like, she's not going to hate me. She let
you, it's fine.
She's not going to hate me for doing the Val Temple and spend another forever. Anyway, I spent 15 minutes failing miserably at this unidentified Val corrupted temple.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, I couldn't even beat the first set of bosses. They're the biggest pricks in the world. Oh my goodness, that first, I don't care about the last boss. It's the first set of bosses, that trio. Oh, I hate
the Val
them.
Temple. Well,
yeah,
that is the boss in the Val Temple.
Oh, is it? It's not the other?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well.
You're
either
thinking
way.
like the
series stuff, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's almost
It's
encouraging.
the same
because-
trio.
So close.
It's the same trio from there. Like
Same
it's the
trio,
same
right.
people.
But
It's
they're the
just-
final.
there's-
Oh,
yeah.
okay. All right. So
And they're
Anyway.
nasty anyways.
awful,
bastards.
awful fight.
Yes, they are. So, and I guess so. I got all discouraged because I used up all 6 portals on that fight, thinking I still had a Zeri to go. But I had the one down there. But it was like with my testing one, and oh man, it was brutal.
I
So
have
anyway,
some. I can give you.
thanks.
Is it on console or PC?
Console. Nobody cares about PC
Oh.
these days.
Then nope.
So anyway, that was my
Offer
PoE week.
retracted.
That's right.
It's true.
So it was good, but man, PoE has been busy, eh? Last couple of weeks, like this league, GGG themselves, they've been crazy busy.
Yeah. Okay. So are we into this week in PoE? I wasn't paying attention to you talking.
No, I know
That
you
was
never
the-
pay attention. Yeah, thanks.
That was the end of your
Yeah, it is.
cool
Thanks.
week. Cool week.
Yeah,
Ty.
thanks,
cool
Justin.
Week.
Yeah,
It
it was
sounds
a
like it was
great
a lot of
week.
fun.
I enjoy it.
Cool week. I heard console and I checked out. Which, speaking of, there were no console patches this
No,
week.
there weren't. Wasn't that great?
Huzzah!
There was one patch this week, and there was a glitch that they fixed that I kind of wish happened to me. They fixed a bug in the Syndicate safe house where portals, or where the Syndicate safe house portals could open around the player instead of the map device.
Well, that'd be fun.
Or Jun, sorry, I guess it was in maps. The portals would open around the player instead of around Jun.
Hey, free MTX.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
sweet. So anyway, but there was a small patch there with some fixes, and then a billion
Tons of MTX.
microtransactions. Oh my goodness, there was a ton. All cool,
Lots of Celestial.
all fantastic. They came out with it just yesterday. I mean, we have 2 weeks worth of like, what is that? It looks like 40 different MTX, and I think they're all fantastic. But the turtles, did you see the like spatial turtles that they had?
The ethereal turtles.
They're like $22 each.
Really?
Oh,
That's not like the pack for all. I didn't actually look. Wasn't there a pack to combine them all?
Yeah, for like 85 if you want all
What?
4.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Is it really that high?
Yeah.
Dang.
Well, I mean, I'm looking on console, so that's showing me Canadian. Oh no, maybe I looked on my phone. Either way, they have the completely opposite strategy that I would use if I was doing MTX. Like if I was to start
That's
a
why they're
company free to
successful.
play. Yeah, maybe. Like to me, their prices are so outrageous. Obviously, they make millions, but their prices are so outrageous. They're not getting any casual dollars from me or a penny pincher. I would go kind of the opposite route and have it cheap enough that
you get an animal. You get a pet.
that's right. But no, like I'm the kind of person where I would have them cheap enough where someone just passing by like, oh, really? It's only $5? Yeah, I can do that. And like I try and swindle that, oh, it's just this much way more, and think that I could hopefully have that many more transactions that it's making up for too steep of a price. But anyway, I like to admit transactions.
I missed that this pet thing had come out. The only way I knew about it was because you tweeted, and I saw you tweet that you really like the real animal ones, and I was like, okay, what is this? And then I'm watching this like mystical turtle fly in and out of a portal. I'm like, what the hell is the real animal here? Like, what is this?
I know.
I get that it's a turtle-ish, but it's floating and glowing. Like,
I think the only real ones, like even they have baby elephants, no normal elephants. I have a tiger.
yeah, they have like dogs,
And I have the Raven
scorpions.
or SRS. That's not a pet, but I like the real ones, and I'm
It
still
just made me
waiting
laugh because it's a glowing.
yeah, I know it's all
turtle. And you're like,
spacious and stuff. Yeah. But I'm still waiting for the zombies to get a little bit more love. I'm waiting. I'm holding out for treants, clowns, or scarecrows. All three would be nice. Not meshed together though. Don't get all crazy. But like a treant theme, a clown theme to match the ringmaster stuff. The scarecrow to have like a creepy farmer thing. Oh man, that'd be awesome for zombies.
You know, what's funny? I'm just looking at this new, because they got new forum avatars that came out, which is whatever. It's fine. It's weird that it took them this long to add some more, but it's cool. But what made me laugh is I'm looking at the screen right now, and I think this league is one of the highest levels I've ever had one of my characters. And when I start a new character for a new league, I just delete the lowest level character, which means that my character named I Physically Hate Tyler will last almost forever.
Oh,
I just noticed it right now.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, yeah, they came out with new avatars for the forums.
I think that's awesome. I
cool.
thought they come out with some new ones, don't they? Or don't you unlock them in different ways? They're not all available to everyone. Because sometimes I scroll through to change them, and I have different ones available to me sometimes, maybe, I think, possibly.
I don't think
No,
so.
it's been the same for a while. The only
Literally
people that have
forever.
special ones are the people that win like hideout competitions or art competitions or have a div card made, because it'll change their portrait to their div card art or like a screenshot of their hideout as like a custom avatar thing.
Oh, it's cool that they do that.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It's a neat.
They came out with a bunch.
Yeah, it's a neat little reward.
Yeah, and some of them, though, are like NPCs for this league. Now, I guess Chris has already mentioned that Expedition is going core in one of the few interviews that he did, but so I guess that makes sense. But yeah, they have a lot of the NPCs that I guess we interact with on a regular basis now in our hideout. And then,
cool.
as mentioned, there's the hideout competition stuff. That stuff's always, like, I click through it, and I don't mean to be apathetic towards it, but I have a huge respect for it. I could not, with just with how hideouts work, and even from the creative standpoint, no way I could come up with anything like this. I can't even think of it. And so I'm always impressed with people that can do the competition stuff or the hideout stuff. I think it's nuts.
Yeah, but share more of them, please, so I can steal them. Because I'm still sitting on the boring. What's that? What's the new one that I just got?
It's the alien one.
Can't even think of it.
I don't know.
No.
Oh, you got Britannia's. Yeah. BK,
boring.
Do you download or make your own hideouts or both?
I usually make my own.
Nice. There you go. Did
It's
they
a lot of fun.
Could you hideout competition yours?
Probably. I don't think I'd win though, but I could participate.
Fun.
I did the very first one that I think it was like 2 years ago was the first one that overlapped with me like joining the game. I did like a submission, and it was seemed pretty well received. Like Bex was even like, "Hey, I like this," and I was like, "Bah." And yeah, I didn't even hit runners up, man. So I was like, "All right."
Cool.
Clearly it's cool, but this is not the thing that I'm best at, so. But I do enjoy it. It's one of those things that I like to use as like, I'm not one of those people that is inherently creative from something that I create myself. So like, I cannot draw, I cannot paint, I cannot do a lot of these sort of more creative endeavors. But if I'm creative in the way of using other assets. So I can build hideouts out of these pieces that already exist. And that has existed across lots of different games that I've played. There's basically hideout decoration in Final Fantasy XIV. There's hideout decoration in Fallout 4. There is, like with the settlement system. There's like a lot of these games that have these little like town or hideout or home sort of decoratings. Like even going back to The Sims, right? I haven't played that in probably 15 years.
Oh,
but
I thought you were going to say like 15 hours. Okay.
I used to play a lot of it. So like that's just been one of the ways that I like am able to be creative. So I find it very relaxing and very soothing. And usually like if I hit a league burnout situation where I'm just like I've played too much, or I need to like a mental reset before starting another character, usually like I'll spend like a night or two working on a hideout, and it kind of like helps me break away and reset the system, so to speak.
Yep, totally.
So it's been a lot of fun, but I do it mostly for me. And like if somebody in like my community is like, I really want this, then I'll like throw something together for them. But
Totally.
Good to know.
yep.
Yeah.
For Fallout 4, my bases were awful.
Oh yeah, no, I had
Every
like all
time.
the mods for it too, so they can make them really cool. I made this one
I
that
never knew
was
why I got them. I would download the mods, but
there's the
they
one
were awful.
settlement that was at the broken down movie theater, and I ended up building a gigantic biodome sort of thing over the entire like parking lot because there was that like sink of water in the middle too that you could run your water generators and stuff from.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was like my best build. It was so cool. It was like multi stories. Everything had these little like nooks and crannies. It was so fun. I don't even think I finished the story because I think the story was like fucking terrible. But I did make a lot of settlements.
They all kind of are.
New
They're
Vegas
fine.
and the original and 2 are amazing. Fallout 3 is like eh. It's redeemed because it's Liam Neeson's your dad. Who doesn't want that fantasy? And then this last one is gonna like ugh.
Yeah. Then there's 76.
Best one yet.
Did you see the post about GG looking for feedback for colorblind stuff in regards to like the gem sockets?
It's about time.
Yeah, no, it's good though. I think it was brought up in one of the interviews, but I think it might have been a conversation that they initiated. I forget, but either way, I know that it's something that you've mentioned a lot in the past, and it's been in their pocket for a bit. So it was neat to see them reaching out, and hopefully they're getting feedback because there's a lot of different kinds of color blindness
It's a
too,
clever
right?
way to do it.
It's been, I mean, that's sort of how it was implemented originally. There was actually colorblind support in like 1 point whatever. But they like went back on it and then didn't put any colorblind friendly stuff in for the longest time, and then even changed the colors of like the red and green sockets or something like that so that they were more indistinguishable than usual after they went back on it or something like that. I can't quite remember,
Now,
but
you're not
yeah,
colorblind, but you know people that are, right?
both of my brothers and my dad are.
Right, and it
So
was
it's
just
something
you.
that I grew up around and had, like awareness of. Like my brothers used to like pause video games and come over and be like, "What is this?" Like, oh, that's, I'd have to describe what it is so that they would know.
Yeah. And your filters are colorblind friendly for the most part?
Right. Because you tell
Yeah.
them by the pattern of the colors that arrive, not necessarily the colors themselves.
Right. Cool. Yeah, so hopefully they get
Is
some
this
good
not
feedback.
a good change? I feel like it's
No,
a good.
well,
It
they're
is.
asking for
It's a-
feedback, so it's
It's a
awesome.
good change, and it's something that people have been asking for a really long time. It's just one of those things that a lot of people, it's definitely a step in the right direction, but it's like, all right, well, yes, you can change the sockets, but what about the red on red on red league, and what about
Sure. One
like
step at a time.
there's
Yeah.
the bigger outcry is for a filter, like a specific color settings filter that would overlay on it and help people see. Like, because some games will have this where it changes like the color of certain ground effects and whatnot to make it easier for colorblind people to see it. I think WoW's got it built in at this point in time. I'm not sure. And I understand that there's some hesitation there because with colorblind modes like that, it can make certain things that maybe you don't want very easy to see, and then people all just flip it on because it's easier to see. So there's like some actual dev considerations for why they don't want to like basically turn this mode on or like implement it haphazardly. But considering I don't even know the statistics of it, but I would say I think it's like 10% of the male population is considered colorblind, which is a pretty significant portion of their, playership.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of weird to leave this portion of your playership completely out in the wings like this. And like, colorblind stuff isn't just for colorblind people. There can be other people with certain degrees of visual impairments that maybe aren't color related that could benefit from a similar sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. Totally. What else do we have? We have Badgers League came and went, and there were some highlights from that. And I'm the kind of gamer where I'm not really looking at other gamers, or like I enjoy having it up sometimes, but I'm not really paying attention specifically to other broadcasters and stuff. But I do like seeing popular and very good players die. So I'm always looking at these
In game.
You have
Calm down.
explained
Oh.
Twitch. Congratulations.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. So I still enjoy clicking on them, and then and then I like click to the end, and if I don't see the restart at checkpoint, then I move to the next video. And if I do see the restart at checkpoint, then I go back to the video and I watch it, and then I enjoy their facial expressions. I am always really impressed with people that can handle dying in hardcore. See, for me, even if I die at level 12 in hardcore, I'm pissed. I could not imagine being somebody that has to level again. Like, really liked the idea, and maybe it was their mistake, or it was like some GGG BS that killed them off screen or something. I don't know. But like to do it at 98, or to do it like, what was it? Like Octavian was at some crazy stupid number, and then he died from something glitchy a couple leagues ago. I forget. Remember the video was posted. I mean, half of it makes me feel good.
Watch.
It is, but I'm torn. I enjoy it and I feel it, and I could never.
I would never do it.
No.
I would punch my camera and break my computer and never play again.
Of course you would. Ziz's Gauntlet's coming up. A lot of people like to play that, and then there were a whole bunch of interviews by GGG. I mean, we got to talk on two of them, right? What was the first one? The first one was Tarkies. The next one was Baeclast, and then the next one was
Ziz and
Mathel. And then the one that we didn't get to before we started was the Gazi, Grimrow Crouching Tuna. They also summarized their own talking points from the first two. Then there was even Preach that hung out on Baeclast, a popular streamer that just recently got into PoE for a short time and had lots of really cool things to say. And BK, you have your bingo thing coming up, and you did a whole bunch of notes that were awesome, very helpful for me because I had no time to watch the Gazi one for over a week and a half, so I was able to go through your notes, and they were awesome.
Yay.
So like,
Glad they're useful.
Yeah, they're awesome, and we'll post them too.
We're gonna link them in the show notes.
Yeah. And so the interviews were just insane. We can talk about them. Well, I guess we'll be talking about them inadvertently for forever. But another thing before we get into those then, because it's unrelated, but I think it's related to GGG Land, but it's not related to those conversations. You know how Fortnite was fighting with Apple? Part of the case, I mean, they're going to dispute it, so who knows how it's going to end up. But Apple's been forced to ease the restrictions on their app development, and the court said that Apple needs to let people they're allowed to let developers use links to exit the app world so that developers can now sort of kind of bypass Apple's crazy fees. That was, but the only reason that I bring that up for GG Land is because eventually they're getting into PoE mobile. So don't know how that changes stuff with how GGG's mentality works. I know they were making PoE mobile per se for fun, but it's another big win for them in that regards. Anyway, that's that. But BK, I loved your notes. They were awesome, and I'm really glad you posted them, and that's really cool that you do them.
It's a lot of fun. I've been in that habit for a really long time. It's very difficult for me to listen. I wasn't one of those people that could show up to class, listen to the lectures, and then do well on the tests. Like, I just don't retain information by hearing things. So I was a very avid note taker in school, which was awesome because that means I got to photocopy and sell them. Side gig. And so it's just a habit I've been in for a really long time. And so anytime there was a dev episode like this one, and any of the times that Chris has talked on Baeclast in the past, or they've had, Rory or whoever on, I've always done these breakdowns because they help me actually understand what I'm hearing and internalize the information in a way that like I can then recall it and explain it to people when they inevitably come to the stream to ask me about like what did they mean when they said blah. Then I've actually got it in my head and I don't have to like pull up the video and then listen to it again and then try to explain it. And so I was talking to one of my moderators and they're like, why don't you just like do that on stream for content because of my RSI that's been going on right now. I've been sort of like lamenting the time, but I do have to stream just because it hurts and I don't really enjoy doing my profession while it causes me pain in any regard.
Well,
so
obviously, yeah.
So we did a couple note-taking sessions after the Brittleknee one. Like the viewership was a little bit lower, understandably, because no one wants to hear me start and stop a a video 50 billion times. But there was some really neat discussions, and we got to put the notes together, and we put the notes on Reddit, and they actually did surprisingly well. I thought that, I'd probably get like my shit kicked in because it's, Reddit. But
I've heard Reddit has that side.
people have been, it was very well received. People were saying thanks, and it spurred on a lot of discussions between people. Just, now that they had this resource that they could read, they had opinions or questions about what happened, and then other people could answer those. So I think it was good for the community overall.
Do you think you'll do notes again while broadcasting? Because doing anything broadcasting takes forever compared to doing it off camera, right? Do you think you'll do it again, or did you appreciate the extra conversation?
I mean, even if you want to look at it as like content filler in general, like I still got something out of it because like I could talk through the different points with the community and, give my take on it, hear their takes on it. And that sort of helps me kind of understand like where this information fits in a wider like PoE scope. Because my community is, I would not say unique, but certainly special in the way that we have a pretty broad mix of player experience types, as far as the people who have played for a really long time, played for a really shorter time, people that can play for many, many hours, and then the people who can play for like a couple hours each week. Like there's a real mixed bag as far as like the types of players that are in my community. And so it's always really interesting and, gives me certainly a wider perspective than my own when we talk through these things together.
I think one of the benefits too with the notes was that you were you were just writing down, here's what the question was that was asked, and here's the answer that was given. So on stream, while you're talking about like your opinions on things, it wasn't like you were throwing that into the notes, which makes it really hard for somebody to try and be judgy when you're putting it out there and saying like, look what I'm providing to you to go through it, because it's not like, hey, here's BK's opinion and you can either agree or disagree with it, which you can talk about on your stream.
Right.
But the notes themselves were very objective.
I thought it was very important that they were that way. That I think I only put my own twist of humor in there a few different times, but other than that, I left them as objective as possible because the idea is to create a resource where people can actually like form their own opinions. In general, the content that I want to create as a creator is something that gives people tools to make their own decisions. So like one of my best videos and most popular videos to date was like the how to choose a league starter one, which is basically like, these are the considerations that I look for. This is how you can use these tools to help you decide. Like, I'm not going to say like, this is the best build for league starting. Like, it's always about trying to put the choice, because like, people come into this game with so many different personal situations and expectations and otherwise that it's like, I don't like blanket statements and I don't like telling people what to do. I think like the part of the joy and beauty of playing the game is taking the tools and making decisions for yourself. And people may not agree with that. There are some folks that want to be told, but there's plenty of content creators that are doing that already. So I figured I'd be on the other side, handing the people that are hungry for tools the information and whatnot that they need to make those decisions.
What was your overall thought on the 3 different interviews?
I think overall it was very good for the company. I feel like even Reddit has sort of like toned down in the hate after having this communication from them and so much communication. I'm not entirely certain that 3 podcasts were needed, though I appreciate the effort of them trying to make sure that the sample size across the different streamers and who they, because it's basically representative politics at this point, right? Each streamer has their own unique audience, and then by assimilating, the many of the top streamers and having these opportunities to have these conversations, they're hoping to reach the greatest amount of passionate players. Because if you don't really care about PoE, you're not following the forums, you're not reading Reddit, you're not watching streamers. So this is really a good tactic to try and get people that care a lot about your game the information that you think that they need. And so I think it was good, but there's a lot of stuff where it felt like it was just people asking the same fucking questions over and over and over again because they didn't like the answers that were given in the first and second time. So I found that a bit annoying. Like there's a lot of sort of like design philosophy stuff that I wish that they could have touched on, as far as like what they find intriguing about like what they're doing in PoE 2 versus what they did wrong, or what they consider they did wrong in PoE 1 and how they change. Like there's so many good questions that can be asked of the systems, of the skills, of like the content that is coming, and even this idea that the map generation stuff is going to be different in like Act 2 of PoE 2, like, is there going to be more of that beyond Act 2? Is this something that could become more fluid? Could there be leagues centered around this same sort of technology? Like, there's so many different questions that we can ask that expand into the future rather than focusing on the past. And I feel like a vast majority of what was asked is sort of like this lamentation of harvest and other sorts of league mechanics that don't exist anymore.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
You know, the asking about the auction house. I don't know how many different times. And I thought a lot of the answers that Chris gave and on many different, issues like that were appropriate. As far as like the auction house thing, saying that like they're a long-term auction house they're not opposed to, but the instant stuff is not going to happen, but they understand that it's a problem. So they're trying to look at what is being traded the most or what's the most annoying to trade and basically reduce the burden of that, meaning all the different stuff that they've added now for map juice, how there's sextants and fragments and scarabs and prophecies and all this stuff that goes into high-end mapping that you have to trade for that's very annoying. They're trying to roll that into like the base map experience now so that you don't have to trade for that, therefore lightening up, the load on the trade system as a whole, allowing trade to be for more specific things rather than everything.
Yeah.
And so, like, I feel a lot of like the solutions that they're going for here are, completely understandable. And even though I might not agree with all of them, like, I can certainly see why they've made certain decisions and where the company is going. And so I find the communication overall very refreshing. I feel a lot better, like, about where PoE is heading. Because, 3.6, like when this league launched, it was a bit of like a what situation for me. Like a lot of the changes just felt really weird. Like the mana stuff is like the biggest one, and the Flask rework was, I was willing to give that one a chance, and honestly, it's all the same to me. But like, especially like the mana stuff, like the damage multipliers is fine. I've been saying for a really long time, you could take my SRS build, cut the damage in half, and it'd still clear the end game. Like I don't really care about that. But the mana multipliers thing was just like a really weird way to solve a problem that I don't think we were having in the first place. Like
for some circumstances for sure. And then they reverted back on it. Yeah.
So like I really hope they shore up the communication issues that happen there as far as like either the different teams that are working on different parts of the game. This is all really indicative of growing pains of a smaller studio becoming a larger one, where they're, basically breaking off into these teams that are going to be specializing in certain content. And then those teams have to learn in time how to communicate to each other, how to create these checks and balances and these sort of like, double check and triple checks of, did we do this right? Has this been addressed? Has this been looked at? Does this need to be signed off or whatnot? Because those systems don't exist until they make them. Like, I'm sure they can learn from other companies, but internally I'm imagining that most studios handle this sort of thing on an individual basis based on the needs of their developers and the size of their teams. And I'm hoping that this is enough of a shakeup and a scare for them that these sort of things are solidified even further, as far as like we saw a good deal of change that happened between Heist and Ritual, as far as like the clear league ideas, things being more nailed down, because Chris was like, all right, I'm taking the reins. We're going to, make sure that the scope of these leagues doesn't get ridiculous anymore. And I hope that trend continues right through the rest of all of this, that like when these mistakes are made, they continue to do what they did between Heist and Ritual. And, hopefully between this one and the next one, we see another sort of similar tightening down of certain structures. I will say though, overall, half the time I wanted to like shake Chris's hand, and half the time I wanted to smother him with a pillow. Because he would like intentionally bait, right? Like he would say certain things that are going to stir people up, and he couldn't help it. And like while
he's living a dream. He's loving it.
I don't, while I certainly agree that certain people in the player base are absolutely ridiculous and need to like just, I don't know, go outside once in a while and get a break. The game isn't really that serious. It's also like, don't antagonize them. Come on.
I enjoyed every minute of it, but yeah, it was fun.
Well, Tyler and I talked this week trying to figure out just with regards to what we were going to talk about, and I did not watch the third interview, but it wasn't anything to do with the people interviewing him. I just was really tired of listening to Chris talk about the same stuff. I did enjoy the first one because it was the first one. Here's the information. They're trying to put out fires. You feel a little bit better about it, whatever. But then I just got to the point where I was like, I don't actually care. And I know that that's going to be different from a lot of people, but it didn't change whether or not I was going to start playing the game. I wasn't overly concerned with the state. There might be some things that I disagreed with, but I've always had the idea that they weren't going to fuck their own game over purposefully. And I just got to the point where I felt like I was just watching him go through the motions of the same questions.
Oh, yeah.
The same direction. And God damn, how do people put on 3-hour podcasts over and over and over? I don't understand it. It's so long. When I went to, because the other ones I actually got to watch while I was working. The third one I couldn't watch while I was working. It was the same with the Baeclast with Preach. Couldn't watch it, too busy. I go to watch them later and I'm like, I can't. Like 3 hours, you got to give me spots to jump to be like, do I care about these questions or not? Because they are unbelievably long. It blows my mind every time.
Yeah, there was like
3 hours long.
There was almost 10 hours of content of Chris talking.
Ugh,
yeah,
but
that's exhausting.
If you're someone that does
I
have
can't imagine
the time,
how
though,
he felt about it. I mean,
well, you could tell he was starting to have a good time as it progressed through different interviews where he was like you said, he's kind of like he was having fun with some of his answers, which you would have to, because you start to go crazy a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you have the time to listen, it was all good stuff from Chris. Like, sure, a lot of it was redundant and repetitive. You spoke in our episode 100 about how it sucks when you're trying to ask questions for someone else because there's no passion in the rebuttal and the conversation doesn't continue. So there's definitely some of that. But I thought all the interviewers did really great. I thought Chris did a great job. I really enjoyed the one with Preach and Tarky and Noogie and Rise. I never say the name right.
Chris just needs to somehow find a way to do this once. Like, well, I don't know how that works.
I'm sure they learned. I would rather
see like 9 streamers in one thing with him and just do it in an hour.
I'm really confused why there were 3 too. I don't know if it's because like of a favoritism thing that they didn't want to be accused of it or didn't want to be accused of not, addressing stuff that was representative of everybody. But like in doing
I feel like
so,
it was that one.
Yeah,
I feel like it was the second one.
Like in doing so, it just created a lot of the same thing over and over and over again.
Yep, which was going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, the people that have the concerns are going to talk to every single podcast because they want the question asked every single time because they are clinging to some shred of hope that the answer might change if they ask enough.
That GGG is going to return Harvest and deterministic crafting. That's the hope. I hope Harvest gets removed forever.
I mentioned in 100 to Tarky that by asking everybody for their thoughts and questions, I get that the idea was to try and give representation to everybody, but it just ended up being a lot of the same questions once you got through 3 of them and you had people asking these questions who it wasn't the type of question they should have been asking anyway, because there was no retort back or some conversation to be had. It was just like, hey, shotgun, let's just start shooting questions off to make sure people feel heard. So I think it was cool that Chris did it. I could have done with one of them.
Yeah, it was probably like a knee jerk to get all 3 out though too, right? Because they made all those appointments per se before they'd done the first Tarky one, so the fire was still burning. They hadn't put anything out yet. So I'm sure, and I mean, they probably realized it partway through, maybe even before the second one. It's like, man, we covered everything. What are we going to do for 2 more? Then this thing happens. And it's like, okay, now we got to delay this one. I don't know. I'm sure they were not going to do the same thing again. Have that many.
It'd be interesting to see how everything goes as far as how they decide, because there was some talks in the last one about like how they're going to handle communications moving forward, and Chris specifically said that if there's ever going to be a sweeping balance pass like this, they'll release the information early and then have the opportunity to go have like a podcast where they talk about why and then answer questions and get feedback and then go back and like then finish the league or finish whatever balance pass thing that they're working on.
Did you like that?
It's really hard for me to have an opinion about it because while I think that the developers should have some sort of idea of the game the players want to play, I'm too hesitant in this sort of amount of power being given to player feedback.
So I have an opinion on it that I think it's awful. My personal opinion is I don't like the idea of them saying, here's some information that we normally wouldn't give you. Please give us your feedback and then we'll go and make changes. Only because we have a community that is insanely loud.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks their opinion's important. Everybody wants to be heard, and you will never make them all happy when you go back and make those changes. So I don't know. I just don't like it. Understand where they're doing it, but I feel like they do it more so to just try and appease some of those people that are upset.
It's a really complicated problem because, like, one of the best ways to solve the problem would be to hire or conscript more people into doing more beta stuff, right? So having having them have their, pure unadulterated ideas of like, all right, this is the nerf that we want to do. And then you put the hands in the people that play beta and the beta players go, this is too heavy handed, or, like whatever it is. And, they're afraid of leaks. And in addition to that, because they're not making people sign NDAs and all that other kind of stuff, it's also their development cycle. So their development cycle literally goes all the way up until the end of the wire. Like, for example, before the Awakener race, the very first Awakener race that happened, when Awakener was released to the world and they were like, yo, kill him for the first time, we were setting up casting for that. And one of the things that I wanted to do, because we had developed a tool that would basically take pictures of the Atlas. So part of tracking in-game racing is knowing somebody's Atlas state. And so in the past, we had developed a bot that would basically watch streams. It would take a picture whenever it saw the center compass. That was the image it was trained to look at. As soon as it saw the center of the compass, it was like, I need to take a picture. Take a picture, sends it off to our area where we can review it later, bring it up in the casting tool, and blah, blah, blah. But since it was a new Atlas, we didn't know what the center was going to look like. And so we needed to train the bot as early as possible what that picture was going to look like. I got it about an hour before the servers went live because they finally had finished what they decided what that design was going to look like in its final form. I'm not saying it's always like that or every single detail is important enough or whatever, but like this is definitely a development cycle where things are, to the wire as far as being done.
But that's also why I don't get how it works then. If it is so down to the wire, how are they supposed to put information out there and have a discussion with the community?
Well, I think it's going to be more or less like vague concepts, sort of like how they kind of talk through things in the development manifesto. But then have the actual numeric changes and patch notes. I think the idea is to talk about like, we have this problem internally with this system. And these are some of the ways that we want to approach that. Like, of these ways, what do you guys think is the best or whatever? I don't know what they're going to do. I'm making up a situation here.
Yep.
But I think that no matter what they decide to do, it's never going to work because of the development cycle. It's like as serious and as locked down as it is, that they are not going to change from the 13-week cycle, and they're going to continue to deliver the amount of content that they're doing in the time that they're doing it. And unless they can expand their team to then accommodate the fact that they have to make these things faster to then have test time for QA and otherwise, like it's never going to happen. Like they'll never have the data in a concrete enough fashion to make the decisions that they want to. And asking the players, yes, it sort of makes sure that you don't make any very unpopular decision. Like if they had come out halfway through the, harvest and been like, yeah, we're thinking about taking this away. What do you guys think? Like that would have been, like that's, of course people are going to be like, fuck you, don't take it away.
Yeah. And so what do you do?
It's
Listen?
Just, like
because then it's worse.
Literally a zero-sum game. Like there's no way, because the problem is something that they like the problem that's creating both of these problems, the communication issue and the fact that some of these nerfs and balance passes just are incorrect. It's just never going to change.
It's their inability to handle their own schedule, I think.
Do they actually not have NDAs?
I'm not sure. I think that's the whole thing, is that they're not wanting to then legally get into all of that kind of stuff. And so like the people that that do have the hands-on test are either people that are local or, people that they are like trust not to spill the beans.
Do you think any of this, all these interviews and the things they're learning from them, do you think it'll matter long term?
I think so. I think they understand that the player base has changed a lot. So like the people that may have supported PoE however many years ago when it was the small indie project are the people that were looking for that specific type of game. And now PoE has grown enough to where it is not just like a name said in passing or with idle fascination or with like a, hey, you remember D2? You want to play something that's like that? And then play this. Like it has grown to the point where it is like, I'm not going to say like a household name, but as far as action RPGs are concerned, like it is the game. Like, yes,
Sure.
D3 still exists, but I don't think it has the turnout that PoE does when it launches a new season. Like, I think there's some like, some important content creators that still create content for D3 and whatnot. But for the most part, like, this is the game now. And because this is the game now for the genre, it's going to attract a wider selection of people that have different experience levels and different requirements or what they want out of the game and all this other kind of stuff. And so this is like one of the most dangerous tipping points for a game like this is because you either continue to stick to your vision and your growth therefore becomes like almost a smaller, like eventually it'll reach more people that like it and want this type of game. So your growth will either slow down because you're going to alienate a little bit more of the super, super casual, players that just want to shoot mini monster, or you homogenize and you run out all the people that have loved your game forever for its complexity, for its systems, for everything else, because you then cater to making it more friendly. And that is sort of like that is what happened between D2 and D3. Like D3 was made for people that have only played WoW, that had only played Overwatch, and they wanted them to play an action RPG for the first time. And that's what D3 is. It's just like the fun arcade, blah, blah, blah.
In regards, well, here, let me put it this way. So GGG, whether they feel like it or not, they came out with an apology post-heist that said, we apologize, we should be prioritizing quality of the game a lot more. It should be higher on our priority lists. We're sorry about that. Then after that, they release Harvest in a state that completely conflicts with their core game, and then they need to take it back. So after they've said, okay, we're going to take a step back, we're going to prioritize quality, then they release something that doesn't even make sense for the game. So then they have to re-release it again. Then you have whatever, what was the last thing? Oh, right. Then you have massive mechanical changes that get introduced in this league that, in GGG's words from these interviews, were barely tested. They were tested on much further and more distant versions of alpha, but for the most part, the part that we got wasn't tested. That's not a company that's taking their schedule and their prioritizing of quality and being able to handle that turnaround that they've constantly shown. Like Chris has talked about, hey, we finally hit alpha pre-launch for the first time. And I think that was for, what was the last league with the really cynical guy we loved? Yeah. I think that was the first league where they hit alpha before the release. Like that's not, so to me, when I hear all these interviews and I hear all these things that they're talking about and that they're going to improve, I'm like, well, in my mind, PoE 2 is going to be in this exact same state 2 years after it's released. Like, sure, a lot of these small detailed fixes and a lot of these amazing things are coming out, but at the end of the day, they can't handle their schedule. And if that can't change, PoE 2 is going to be PoE 1, but with all the cool features. So I get, with all this stuff, it's hard for me to get excited because I don't get excited for content from a company when they're excited about hitting alpha.
Well, I mean, to expect a finished product of any league is not the right idea. Like we are essentially beta testing an idea for them in the actual league. Like that's how these leagues have been structured for the longest amount of time. And that is more or less the product will always be given. And to expect a bugless launch in any sort of form of fashion in this day and age, especially across all the different, yeah. So like I would say in some regards that I believe a lot of this is not me licking assholes here. I do genuinely believe that these are growing pains and things that they're learning because the team that put together 3.0 is huge. Is much, much different than the team that's putting together PoE 2. when they created PoE 1 and, all the way through 3.0 with this last, sort of finalization of the 10x system, and we've had a couple different iterations of the in game now. There's been a learning process each time. And a lot of that has come down to learning, what systems work, what systems don't. And so PoE 1 was a bunch of kids in a garage that had an idea of making a game. And now PoE 2 is going to turn around and be the game that they have now that they have wisdom and knowledge. They're trying to create the game that they originally envisioned back when they put the first one together, but with the experience and knowledge and know-how of how to actually do it this time.
But do you think they'll be able to handle the schedule that they can't handle now with that new game?
Well, there's a lot of limitations that are happening with that too. Not all of it is because they're just making the decision to be bad. They have actual real problems with hiring people and getting people out there right now because of COVID and other situations. In the critical time where they needed to expand their team the most, they have been unable to.
Right, but they're not aware, these limitations aren't a surprise to them. You always plan around limitations. So
I don't think any of them could have seen COVID happening.
Well,
and
no,
the fact
you don't
that it
plan,
would happen.
but COVID isn't new.
But when you create a 5-year plan to then, hey, we're going to think about creating PoE 2 into the next 5 years of development for PoE 2, a worldwide pandemic is certainly not on the 5-year plan.
No, that's not my point, though. My point is COVID's been around for a while. And so you have to change the scale of these leagues, that these leagues aren't that far planned ahead. And so you have to change the scale of what you have according to what you have. If COVID was new, sure, that makes sense. When COVID's brand new and all this stuff happens, that makes sense. But now that we're a year and a half in, it's the same thing. You just change your expectations. You don't have to have massive leagues.
You can't change the player expectation, though, because a lot of people found Ultimatum completely boring and stopped playing it because it was so simple and added so little to the game.
My struggle with a lot of this stuff, though, is I actually find their schedule fine. Mostly because I'm still going to play it. I've come back since beta every single time, ever since they've started leagues. It's fun. I'll play, and I might not like it for very long. And I don't mind if they make some leagues that are simple. I just will play it less. That's me. I know that that's not always the smartest decision for them from a financial point of view. Some people don't like it as a player. Some people do like it as a player. I think the thing that I just don't want to see is I don't want to watch GGG care more about what some loud people say in Reddit and want their opinion heard versus what they want to do for their game. I'm fine if there's a league that comes out and it's not the greatest. There's some things that have screwed things over for me. I'm not fine with them doing changes because they feel like this is the direction they have to go because people are upset. PoE 2, in my personal opinion, doesn't mean anything because it is so freaking far away.
Yep.
That I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue as, maybe the thought is, because we are not even remotely close to that being a release and to finding out how the league system is going to work with them. And Ty, you and I have had this discussion lots with regards to their schedule. I'm fine with it. It just might mean that sometimes it's coming out unpolished, and I'm all right with that. It really doesn't bother me. We've joked about it. At least I've joked about it. 2 weeks into the league, I'll get to play the version that they kind of meant to have out, and I don't have the time to play in the beginning anyway, so it's not a big deal. But it's not going to change. The schedule's not going to change. They're not going to do something different.
They financially cannot back away from the 13-week cycle that they've established now.
Yep. So I'm fine with it. I just when you talk about them maybe releasing information ahead of time, talking to people, that irritates me a little bit because I feel like they've done a pretty good job of running Path of Exile up to this point. And while there may be things that happen that I don't like or I don't agree with, I'm still playing the game. I didn't this week, but you know what I mean? I'm going to play every league that comes out. I may play for shorter amounts than longer amounts, but
I think fundamentally they're hoping that hard mode is more or less going to be their way to straddle the divide between both worlds, to continue to, appeal to the beta players that want that nitty-gritty sort of annoying, tedious and perilous experience that beta was. I mean, I didn't play it, so I don't know. I'm just speaking from what I am assuming from the discussions in the podcast. And I think that they're more or less going to allow for that experience to continue to exist within PoE without balancing the entire game around continuing to want that to be available for certain players. So I think the idea between all of this is to straddle the divide between the two types of players. Like I would say that very much there's like the people that just want to turn their brain off and shoot mini monsters, and then there's the people that love PoE for everything PoE is, as far as like the system, the skill gems, and the intricacies contained within. And I am certainly weary of the idea that only like the challenge will remain in hard mode, and then maybe the normal mode is just going to kind of run off and become some crazy thing where the balance passes are lighter and the meta shifts less frequently, because that's what killed D3 for me, was like 8 seasons of the same meta. It was so boring. Yes, it was very powerful and you got to feel powerful, but like, really, is that, for some people that's enough? For me it's not. But I also I don't entirely agree with and am interested in the systems that are being proposed and introduced in hard mode. So I really hope that like the standard mode doesn't just become this free for all.
Yep, I would be shocked if they did. It would be really surprising to me if that was what it became.
I don't think it'll go completely off of the rails, but I think like a lot of these sort of decisions that they've made with certain systems already may not continue to be made in such a heavy-handed manner. Like the whole harvest, they came down really hard on it. I mean, certainly they shouldn't have released it the second time at full power. That sort of was something that made us all scratch our heads. But in a future where hard mode exists and something like that gets introduced again, like who knows how far they'll dial it back anymore.
Yep.
And that's the part that actually has me the most concerned for the future of the game.
All right, I'm shifting gears. You have a league coming out, Bingo League. Can you tell us about it?
It'll be on the 18th. We'll have the standard sort of set of rules and otherwise, where it'll be a challenge card with a whole bunch of challenges on it, and which you'll have to complete in a row, diagonal, or column in order to win prizes. And then we have bounties as well. It's been a very popular system that we've added that have actually allowed for a wider variety of players to participate and possibly win. So people in the community will create these bounties that will be anything from very challenging to RNG based to ridiculous. I think one of them last league was to, as a witch wearing nothing, punch Brutus to death. And so some person actually sat there for 20 minutes and punched Brutus to death with a DPS of 2.3.
Oh my god. Is this for one slot? Or no, this was for one of the bounties, right?
Yeah, it's one of the bounties. So
okay,
there's a wide variety of them, and they allow the entire bingo league to be a little bit more inclusive. Of course, when you have something that's very challenging like this, it caters to the top % of players, but these bounties have really kind of mellowed everything out and allowed people to just kind of have fun.
Sweet.
So I really like the balance of the system, and I think it's good for the overall health of Bingo League. I don't know how popular this one will be, considering the state of the league so far as player trends are, but we'll do our best to put on a good show regardless.
If people want info, where do they get it?
They can follow on Twitter or join our Discord. I will be simultaneously releasing all the information relevant to it in both sources. And yeah, both of those are good.
And your card comes out the 18th, and the event starts when?
The card comes out the night of the 17th, and the league begins the morning of the 18th. We give people about 12 hours to prepare.
That's all you need. 12 hours.
Well, the Center Square, we always try and make somehow build related or something that...
It's supposed to be free.
No.
Bingo
I get to make
Center free.
I get to make up my own rules.
Killed me when I found out that wasn't a freebie.
I mean, it is. You just have to play a particular build. All the challenges, though.
No, it's not freebie. Freebie means I made a character. That's a freebie.
All right.
Create character. Anyway, we'll put information for it down below so that if anybody's interested, they can come play and check it out. Sweet. Well, let's wrap up 101 because it is long and someone needs to use the washroom. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for 101.
Sorry, I somehow turned my headset off. I didn't hear what you
thanks
said.
for joining us for 101.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
You want to join us for After Dark?
Of course. I wouldn't miss it.
Sweet. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Episode 101, Forever Exiled, Path of Exile podcast. I'm Justin, A.K. Tags.
Tyler, Wrecker of Days.
And
I'm Brittleknee.
we will catch Patreons in After Dark. Everybody else will see you in 102. If you're looking for more information, you can find it down below. Website, foreverexiled.com. Twitter, foreverexiled82. We're on Discord, and our Patreon info, etc. is down below. Bye.